Hi guys, welcome back to today's video. So today's video is going to be the long awaited Bongo making video. It's taken so long to make him, but or her, but alas I finally did, and it's finished. So it was a total labor of love, and I spent a long time making this doll. But I think it turned out really well. So this doll is for the Calgary Zoo, part of their educational programs. I also have made a younger version as well, or a juvenile version. So I'll go through the whole process of making this doll. Yeah, it took so long. So yeah, I do have a video on sculpting the head over on my YouTube. It's go through the whole process of sculpting everything, including the horns and everything, or the antlers. So yeah, if you want to know how I made him, then keep watching. But I will also say that the process of adding the stripes onto the body, that's available over on my Patreon as well for my $5 and up tiers. So if that's something you want to learn how to do, I cover 2 different techniques, including this technique that I used on this doll. So yeah, check it out if you're interested in something like that. But if not, keep watching. Alrighty, so if you already haven't seen my video on how I sculpted this big boy, then check it out. It's on my YouTube. I'll try and remember to link it, but I never do. But it is sculpted out of Sculpey Original for the head part, and the antlers are also sculpted out of Sculpey Original, but added some support with some epoxy sculpt. So I've just added some epoxy sculpt down the bottom to just give it a bit more strength and support for the antlers to stand up straight, and that there's less chance of it snapping. So yeah, check out that video. So there's going to be a fair bit of painting in this video because the head is painted and also the hooves. So if you want to like scrub through the painting session, I've cut a lot of it out, just kind of showing main parts of how I painted it. But I used a bunch of different paints by the brand Chromacryl. They're water-based acrylic paints, and I have also primed this before adding any paint to it. So the primer I use is a canvas primer, and it's by the brand Deruvian Matisse. It just provides a good tooth for the paint that you apply to stick onto the surface. So Sculpey and resin are quite slippery, so it's good to have a good tooth on things that you're going to be painting. So I'll probably just let this play out. I use a combination of dry brush and just loading up the paint. So the dry brush I mainly use on the antlers, or the areas that I want to add a little bit of colour but not too much. And just it's just a process of layering the paint, because as you can see it is quite thin, and you can see the Sculpey underneath. So a couple of layers of paint that I applied to this, and a good sealer to make sure that the paint is protected. But I'll probably let the paint bit play out, and then I'll come back. So, 'cause I don't know, I don't know. 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 So, 'cause Alrighty, so we can move on to the fur, or the body part of it, the skin part. So I'm using a minky fabric. It's not exactly the correct color, but I got a lighter color that enables me to add some more shading and coloring onto the doll once it's been put together. So it weirdly came in these pieces, but I'm glad the bodies themselves actually fit on there. So what I'm doing is just marking out all the brown pieces that I'm going to be cutting out, and the legs I'm going to be doing in a white minky fabric, and that way I can add the patterns that I want to add to the legs that the bongo has. So I'm just going to be cutting out the leg bits out of this white minky fabric, and I'm going to sew it up on the sewing machine, and then I can start attaching everything, putting everything together, and start working on the stripes. When cutting fabric as well, especially minky fabric like this, I'd recommend using a bigger pair of scissors, a pair of fabric scissors specifically. Normal scissors tend to kind of slip on the fabric and not cut it properly, so fabric scissors have like a little tooth on their blade, and that way it sort of sticks to the fabric when you're cutting it, and it cuts a straighter line, and it kind of feels nicer when you're cutting it. So I'd highly recommend getting a good pair of fabric scissors to cut fabrics. I wouldn't recommend using fabric scissors to cut faux fur though. I'd still recommend using the smaller scissors to get in between the pile and cut the backing. So that's what the minky fabric looks like. You see it's nice one way, and then it sort of goes rough the other way. So this was kind of the closest thing I could find to bongo skin, I guess, or fur. So I thought this would work really well. It is a little bit more difficult to work with and a little bit less forgiving than faux fur. So yeah, practice makes perfect, but yeah, it works really well for deer type animals like this. So if you want to see a stripe making video, I go through 2 different techniques of how I made the stripes on these bongo dolls. You can find that over on my Patreon for my $5 and up tiers. $5 and up tiers. So you can find a video over there, and I go through 2 whole processes of what I did to create the stripes on these bongos, as well as a whole heap of other things that you might be interested in learning. So link should be in the description if you're interested in something like that. It's up there right now, so check it out. So I'm going to be pinning the fabrics together. So I'm going to sew, like I said before, the white bits onto the actual doll first, and then I can start sewing everything up. The little tufts of fabric I also have in my video as well on my Patreon if you want to know what I did there. But it's basically just creating a really thin mane on the bongos, because they have a particular shape and mane on the spine. So I'll go into detail about that over on my video as well. So this is what we have once it's been sewn up. You can see this is one technique that I used for the stripes, and then in the Young Bongo video you're gonna see a different technique of making the stripes. So I think this turned out really well. The key thing to remember when sewing this up is getting your stripes in line. This fabric is quite slippery as well, so just keep things pinned until the very last minute, and yeah, just keep an eye on where you're sewing. So basically I can put the skin on now. It looks like I'm trying to dress a toddler or something, but I'm just going to be previously I felted this body, so this felting video of how I did this will also be over on my Patreon. It hasn't gone up yet, but it will go up this month, and I'll go through the process of what I did about felting this body. So basically, once the body is roughly the right shape that I'm happy with, I can just drape that skin over the top. I've left quite big openings so I can get everything through. The beauty of using ball and socket armature is if you're having trouble getting things through, you can just pop it off and then just stick the armature through and then attach the heads or the feet again. So just sort of going around the body, pinning areas that I think need to be pinned and making sure it's going to look okay once it's all sewn up. I did make the body a little bit bigger just for that give, and so I have the ability to change the way things look or cut pieces off. And then I'm just going to go around and sew everything up using a lattice stitch and a good quality thread. And I'm going to also be adding extra polyfill in areas that I want to bulk out, or areas that have a little bit more muscle definition as well. That's the beauty of using minky fabric, is you can sort of see a little bit more muscle definition in your dolls. So I try and achieve that using different bits of stuffing or felting, anything like that. So once it's sewn up, everything's glued together. I use a tacky fabric glue to glue my pieces to the resin. I can go ahead and add the markings on the bongos like I said before, so it's really basically around the leg area. So that's pretty much the whole process. It does have a painted face, but I tried to make it so it seamlessly transitions from polymer clay to fabric, and yeah, it's pretty much a final result. I'm pretty happy with the way it looks. Let me know what you think. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, I really appreciate it. You can check me out on Instagram and Facebook at Creatures of Nat, and also my shop creaturesofnat.com, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!